What if one of Southeast Asia's most peaceful-looking countries was hiding a reality few travelers ever see? Laos has no ocean, yet it has thousands of river islands. Ancient stone jars still puzzle archaeologists, while remnants of a war fought decades ago continue to shape life today. Behind the temples and mountains lies a Laos far more surprising than the postcards suggest. The war is over, but its legacy still shapes daily life. In the quiet countryside of Laos, history is not confined to museums. It can still influence where people farm, build homes, roads, and schools. Between 1964 and 1973, more than 2 million tons of explosive ordnance were dropped on Laos during the Indo-China War. Around 270 million cluster submunitions were released, and United Nations estimates suggest roughly 80 million failed to detonate. That legacy makes Laos the most heavily bombed country per capita in history. Decades after the fighting ended, unexploded ordnance, known as UXO, remains a serious challenge, especially in rural communities. A United Nations study published in 2026 says contamination continues to fall disproportionately on poor, rural, and ethnic minority communities. Farmland and construction sites may require professional surveys and clearance before they can be safely developed. The scale is difficult to imagine. By September 2025, more than 800 square kilometers of land had been cleared across 16 provinces and Vientiane capital, benefiting more than 3 million people. Nearly 1 million cluster submunitions had been destroyed, while risk education had reached about 3,700 villages. Yet the danger has not disappeared. In the first half of 2025, UXO accidents caused 5 deaths and 9 injuries. According to UNDP, progress is visible. UXO Lao reports that from 1996 through 2025, its teams cleared more than 58,000 hectares and destroyed more than 1.89 million UXO items. For many families, cleared land means more room to grow food, build safely, and plan for the future. In Laos, the legacy of war is still present, but so is the long effort to reclaim the land, one carefully cleared field at a time. The mysterious plain of jars. Deep in the mountains of northern Laos lies one of Southeast Asia's strangest archaeological landscapes, the Plain of Jars. Spread across the Luang Plateau are thousands of massive stone vessels, some standing taller than a person and weighing several tons. More than 2,100 jars have been documented across multiple sites, and in 2019, UNESCO added the megalithic jar sites in Luang to the World Heritage List. Archaeologists believe the jars were created during the Iron Age, roughly between 500 BC and 500 AD. Evidence found around them suggests they were connected to ancient funerary practices. Human remains, burial pits, ceramic vessels, stone discs, and other objects have been discovered near several jar fields, supporting the idea that these sites once played an important role in rituals surrounding death. But many questions remain unanswered. Who exactly carved these enormous containers? How were stones weighing several tons moved across rugged terrain without modern machinery? And why were so many jar sites built across such a wide, mountainous region? Some jars were carved from sandstone, while others were made from granite, limestone, or other local rock. Researchers have identified dozens of separate archaeological locations, and new sites continue to be documented as surveys expand. Many remain difficult to reach because they are hidden in forests, on hillsides, or in remote countryside. There is also another complication. Parts of Luang were heavily bombed during the 20th century, meaning archaeological teams sometimes have to coordinate with unexploded ordnance specialists before areas can be safely examined. Today, Visitors can walk among the giant jars at several cleared sites and see a landscape that feels almost prehistoric. Their original builders disappeared long ago, but the stones remain. After roughly 2,000 years, the Plain of Jars is still one of Laos's greatest mysteries, a place where archaeology, legend, and unanswered questions meet in the same field. A landlocked country built around the mighty Mekong. Laos has something unusual compared with most of its Southeast Asian neighbors. It has no coastline at all. Surrounded by China, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and Myanmar, Laos is the only landlocked country in Southeast Asia. Yet instead of an ocean, one enormous river has shaped much of the country's history, economy, and everyday life: the Mekong. The Mekong is one of Asia's great rivers, stretching for roughly 4,900 kilometers from the Tibetan Plateau toward the South China Sea. A major section flows along Laos, including long stretches forming the border with Thailand. For generations, communities have depended on its waters for fishing, agriculture, transportation, and trade. Travel through riverside communities, and the Mekong becomes much more than a blue line on a map. Early in the morning, fishing boats move across the water, while markets begin filling with fresh produce and fish. Farmers cultivate fertile land near its banks, and ferries still connect communities in places where bridges are limited. Even Vientiane, the national capital, sits directly beside the river, with Thailand visible across the water. But the Mekong is also changing. Laos has invested heavily in hydropower, using its mountainous geography and river systems to generate electricity for domestic use and export. At the same time, dams, changing rainfall patterns, droughts, floods, and environmental pressures have raised concerns about fisheries and communities that depend on the river. Perhaps the most dramatic transformation appears farther south. When the Mekong reaches Siphandon, its channel spreads across a vast landscape filled with islands, rocky outcrops, wetlands, and powerful waterfalls. And this is where Laos reveals its next surprise. Despite having no sea, the country has a place famously known as the 4,000 Islands, an extraordinary river world hidden hundreds of miles from the nearest ocean. 4,000 islands in a country with no ocean. It sounds almost impossible. Laos has no coastline, yet in the far south of the country, travelers arrive at a place famously called the 4,000 Islands. Known locally as Siphandon, this extraordinary river landscape appears where the Mekong spreads across a vast area near the Cambodian border, creating a maze of islands, sandbars, wetlands, and channels. But the name can be misleading. There are not necessarily exactly 4,000 permanent islands. The number is a traditional description of the countless pieces of land that appear throughout this enormous section of the Mekong, especially during the dry season. When water levels fall, small islands and sandbars emerge. During the rainy season, many disappear beneath the rising river. Among the best-known inhabited islands are Don Kong, Don Det, and Don Kon. Here, life has traditionally moved at the rhythm of the Mekong. Boats carry people between communities, fishermen work along the channels, and houses, farms, guest houses, and small businesses sit surprisingly close to the water. In some villages, bicycles and motorbikes remain more common than cars. The region also hides traces of a very different era. On Don Kon and Don Det, visitors can still find remnants of a narrow-gauge railway constructed during the French colonial period. It was created to move cargo around the dangerous waterfalls and rapids that prevented boats from traveling continuously along this section of the Mekong. Nearby lies another dramatic surprise: Khon Pha Pheng Falls. Stretching across a broad section of the Mekong, this immense system of rapids and waterfalls forms a natural barrier to river navigation and is often described as the largest waterfall in Southeast Asia by volume. Siphandon shows how unusual Laos can be. Hundreds of miles from any coastline, people live among islands shaped by a river that constantly changes with the seasons. And after sunset, when boats return home and the Mekong grows quiet, the 4,000 islands can feel like a world completely separated from the rest of Southeast Asia. A city where the day begins before sunrise. Before sunrise in Luang Prabang, while much of the city is still quiet, one of Laos's most recognizable traditions begins. Lines of Buddhist monks in saffron-colored robes leave their temples and walk silently through the streets as local residents offer food. This centuries-old practice is known as Tak Bat, or the morning almsgiving ceremony. For visitors, it can look like an extraordinary scene. But for local Buddhists, this is not a tourist performance. It is a religious practice connected to generosity, humility, and the relationship between monasteries and the community. Residents traditionally offer foods such as sticky rice, while monks receive what is given and continue their morning route. Buddhism has a powerful presence across Laos, and the majority of the population identifies with Theravada Buddhism. Luang Prabang is one of the clearest places to see that influence. The historic city contains dozens of Buddhist temples and religious structures, including Wat Sieng Thong, one of the country's best-known monasteries. The city itself is remarkable. Located between the Mekong and Nam Khan rivers and surrounded by mountains, Luang Prabang combines traditional Lao architecture with buildings influenced by the French colonial period. UNESCO recognized the town as a World Heritage Site in 1995, describing its urban landscape as an exceptional fusion of traditional architecture and European colonial structures. Yet tourism has created a delicate challenge. As more visitors photograph and observe the morning ceremony, local authorities and cultural organizations have repeatedly emphasized respectful behavior. Travelers are expected to keep their distance, avoid blocking the monks, dress appropriately, and participate only when they understand the tradition. That is what makes an early morning here so different. While many modern cities begin with traffic, offices, and crowded streets, parts of Luang Prabang still awaken to temple bells and an ancient ritual. One country, dozens of different cultures. Look at a map and Laos may appear to be one small, unified nation. But travel from the lowlands of the Mekong into the mountains, and the cultural landscape can change dramatically. Laos officially recognizes 50 ethnic groups, divided into 4 major ethno-linguistic families, making the country far more diverse than many first-time visitors expect. The Lao ethnic group represents the largest share of the population, but millions of people belong to other communities, including Khmer, Hmong, Akha, Thai, and many others. Some communities have lived in remote valleys and mountain regions for generations, developing their own languages, clothing, ceremonies, farming traditions, and social customs. This diversity becomes especially visible in northern Laos. Travel between villages and traditional dress can change within a relatively short distance. In some communities, elaborate textiles are still woven by hand. Patterns and techniques can carry cultural meaning, while skills may be passed from one generation to the next. Markets can become meeting points where different languages, foods, clothing styles, and agricultural products exist side by side. Language is another surprise. Lao is the country's official language, But it is only one part of a much larger linguistic landscape. Communities across the country speak languages belonging to Thai Kadai, Austroasiatic, Hmong Mien, and Sino-Tibetan language families. In remote areas, children may grow up speaking a local language at home before learning Lao through school and wider society. Modernization, migration, tourism, and improved transportation are gradually transforming these communities. Better roads and digital connections can create new opportunities, but they can also place pressure on traditional languages and cultural practices. This is why describing Laos as a single culture misses much of the story. Behind the national borders is a remarkable human mosaic shaped by geography, history, and generations of adaptation. The markets that reveal what Lao people really eat. To understand everyday life in Laos, forget the restaurant menu for a moment and visit a local market early in the morning. Before many travelers have finished breakfast, vendors are already arranging baskets of vegetables, river fish, tropical fruit, fresh herbs, mushrooms, bamboo shoots, and ingredients gathered from farms, forests, and waterways nearby. The first surprise is the incredible variety. Lao cuisine depends heavily on fresh herbs and seasonal ingredients, so what appears in a market can change depending on the region and time of year. Along the Mekong and other rivers, freshwater fish remain important to local diets. In mountainous areas, wild plants, mushrooms, and bamboo shoots can also appear alongside familiar vegetables. But one food stands above almost everything else: sticky rice, known in Lao as khao niao. Laos is famous for its deep cultural connection to glutinous rice. It is traditionally steamed in woven bamboo baskets and commonly eaten by hand, with small portions shaped into bite-sized pieces and paired with other dishes. A typical meal may include sticky rice alongside grilled fish or meat, vegetables, soups, and jiao, a family of intensely flavored dipping sauces. Another famous dish is larb, usually prepared with chopped or minced ingredients, herbs, lime, and seasonings. The exact recipes vary widely between families and regions. Markets also reveal something important about life outside major cities. Food supply chains can be remarkably local. Some vendors sell produce grown by their own families or sourced from nearby communities, while seasonal foods reflect what the surrounding environment can provide. For travelers, certain ingredients may seem unfamiliar, but reducing Lao markets to strange food misses the bigger story. These places show how geography, agriculture, rivers, forests, and generations of knowledge have shaped the country's cuisine. The Bolaven Plateau, Laos's cooler world. Above the lowlands. Head into southern Laos, and the landscape begins to change. Rising above the warmer lowlands is the Bolaven Plateau, a highland region centered largely in Champasak Province. With elevations commonly ranging from roughly 1,000 to more than 1,300 meters, parts of the plateau can feel noticeably cooler than the plains below. This climate, combined with fertile volcanic soils and abundant rainfall, has helped make the Bolaven Plateau the heart of Laos's coffee industry. Coffee was introduced commercially during the French colonial period, and today both Arabica and Robusta varieties are grown here. For thousands of farming families, coffee is not simply a drink. It is an important source of income connected to local markets and international exports. Travel through the plateau, and coffee plants can stretch across hillsides between villages and forests. During harvest season, ripe coffee cherries are picked and processed before the beans are dried, sorted, roasted, and eventually sold. Some farms and cooperatives now welcome visitors, giving travelers a closer look at the journey from fruit on a branch to coffee in a cup. But coffee is only part of what makes this region extraordinary. The plateau receives heavy seasonal rainfall, feeding rivers that plunge over dramatic cliffs. Tad Phane is among its most famous waterfalls, where twin streams drop approximately 120 meters into a forested gorge. Tad Yuang, another popular waterfall nearby, offers a closer view of the region's powerful water systems. The Bolaven Plateau is also home to communities from several ethnic groups, adding another layer to the cultural diversity of southern Laos. Agriculture, village life, tourism, and expanding infrastructure now exist alongside landscapes that can still feel remarkably wild. It is a side of Laos that many travelers never expect: cool highlands, coffee plantations, deep forests, and enormous waterfalls. The railway that is changing how Laos moves. For generations, traveling across mountainous Laos could mean spending long hours on narrow, winding roads. Then, in December 2021, something dramatically changed. The Laos-China Railway began passenger operations, introducing a modern rail connection through a country that had previously possessed only a tiny railway network. The railway stretches for more than 400 kilometers from Vientiane, the Lao capital, north to Boten on the Chinese border, where it connects with China's rail network toward Kunming. Because northern Laos is dominated by mountains, engineers had to build an extraordinary number of tunnels and bridges. Roughly 60% of the route runs through tunnels or across bridges. The difference for travelers can be remarkable. A journey between Vientiane and Luang Prabang that could take many hours by road can now be completed by train in roughly 2 hours, depending on the service. Other major destinations, including Vang Vieng and northern communities, have also become easier to reach. By 2025, the railway had already transported tens of millions of passenger trips since opening, while cross-border passenger services linking Laos and China had expanded international travel. Freight trains also carry agricultural products, manufactured goods, and other cargo, giving landlocked Laos a faster connection to regional trade networks. But the railway represents more than convenience. Laos has promoted a long-term ambition to transform itself from a landlocked country into a land-linked country, using transportation infrastructure to connect China with mainland Southeast Asia. The project has also attracted debate over financing, debt, land, and how its economic benefits will be distributed. Those questions are important because major infrastructure can create opportunities while also bringing long-term financial and social challenges. Still, the visual contrast is extraordinary. A sleek electric train now races through tunnels beneath mountains, passing rice fields, villages, and landscapes where travel once moved at a completely different pace. Perhaps the biggest surprise is the pace of life. After ancient stone jars, unexploded ordnance, mountain railways, enormous waterfalls, and thousands of river islands, the final surprise about Laos is not something you can measure on a map. It is the rhythm of everyday life. Laos has a population of roughly 7.5 million people, yet much of the country remains rural. Outside Vientiane and other growing urban centers, agriculture continues to play an important role in daily life. Rice fields surround villages, local markets open early, families operate small businesses, and the changing seasons still influence how many communities work and live. In places along the Mekong, mornings may begin with fishing boats crossing the water. In Luang Prabang, monks walk through quiet streets collecting alms. In the highlands, farmers tend coffee plantations, while in remote villages, weaving and other traditional skills continue alongside smartphones, motorcycles, and increasingly better digital connections. This does not mean Laos is frozen in time. The country is changing rapidly. New roads, hydropower projects, tourism, expanding cities, and the Laos-China Railway are connecting communities in ways that would have seemed extraordinary only a generation ago. That contrast may be the most fascinating part of modern Laos. A high-speed train can emerge from a mountain tunnel, while only a short distance away, farmers work fields using practices passed through generations. Ancient temples stand beside modern businesses. Traditional markets operate in cities increasingly connected to the global economy. For travelers, Laos is not simply a destination of waterfalls and temples. It is a country living between continuity and transformation. And perhaps that is what makes real life in Laos so compelling. The country does not reveal itself through one shocking fact or famous landmark. It appears slowly in the river, the villages, the markets, the mountains, and the people adapting to change while carrying centuries of history with them. Laos is a land where ancient mysteries, painful history, living traditions, and rapid modernization exist side by side. From the mighty Mekong to quiet mountain villages, every journey reveals another unexpected story. And perhaps the real Laos is still waiting beyond the roads most travelers know.